Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Dear Divine Selves, what is Atman, the Self? Where to find and how to find that Atman, the Self? What is the fundamental nature of Atman, the Self? These are some of the fundamental questions around which the entire metaphysics of Advaita Vedanta revolves, seeks to answer these fundamental questions. The entire quest for self-realization begins with these fundamental questions and revolves around these questions. Therefore, today I intend to speak briefly about this fundamental issue as to what is Atman, what is the nature of the Atman, how to find it, how to know it. I would do no better than to explain one of the verses of Atmabodha. Atmabodh means self-knowledge. Atmabodh is a very important introductory text of Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya, and this text is very popular, especially for the beginners, being a very good, lucid, simple, direct introductory text of Advaita Vedanta, Prakarana Grantha. So I would take one of the verses, verse 44th of Atmabodha, to answer these questions. Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya says, Atma tu satatam praptam apya praptavat avidya tatnashe praptavat bhati swakanthabharanam yatha swakanthabharanam yatha. He says, Atman is an ever-attained, ever-present reality. But only because of the ignorance of that Atman, it appears as unknown, unrealized, unattained. Once that ignorance about that is destroyed, annihilated, the Atman is known as an ever-present, ever-available, ever-accessible, ever-attained reality of ours, everyone and everything. And he gives an illustration, just it's a common sense and common experience in our daily life, just like he gives an example of an illustration of somebody who is wearing a necklace around his or her neck, and still, due to some ignorance, the person is looking around, where have I lost my necklace? Where is my necklace? I personally remember many times about my spectacle. I use spec for while studying. So sometimes I find that I was concerned whether that has been lost somewhere, misplaced somewhere, and then after a while I find that no, it's there on my on my nose. Similarly, Atman, the eternal universal substratum of the entire universe and the innermost core of yours and mine, is an ever attained, ever present, ever accessible reality. But we don't know. How do we know? Unless and until we know the nature, the dimensions, the nature, the characteristics of that Atman that you call self. How do we know whether it is attained or not attained, whether we know it or not? So once we know what Atman is, and then with the instruction of the teacher, the guru, the competent self-realized master, we come to know the greatest wonder of our life, the biggest miracle of the universe, that supreme eternal universal truth called Atman is of the nature of pure being and pure consciousness, which is ever present within ourselves at the innermost core of our existence. There is nothing and no one as innermost as my Atman. Atman is of the nature of pure consciousness, self-luminous awareness, witness consciousness, that is the indwelling self within me, and everything and every layer and every dimension of my personality or individuality is rooted, is anchored, is superimposed on my Atman. My Atman alone is substratum, the ground on which this body, the senses, the mind, the intellect, all these are anchored, rooted, superimposed. All these external layers are dimensions of my personality called mind-body complex are superimposed, and therefore why and how one is saying that it is superimposed, they are unreal, and that Atman alone is real, because just follow one principle and investigate on that very principle, you will reach immediately at the core of your existence, that is your Atman. The principle is anything and everything other than the Atman, the self, is ever changeable, ever mutable, subject to decay. It's coming and going. But there is only one substance, only one matter, only one reality that is neither subject to birth or death, nor any decay, and its absolute independent reality. That is the Atman. So let's investigate our personality right now, right here. Because the Atman, the self, is an ever-present reality within and without, every moment, everywhere, in everyone, everything. So where is it more easier than to investigate within ourselves? We are present right now, right here. So start with the name. This name of this sannyasi called Swami Sacchidananda Saraswati, and every human being has a name, or even other species have a name. As a human being, I am called in this species as human being. The others are animal, the plant life. So this body and the senses that I know, I experience every moment, I call my body, my senses, are ever changing. It's a scientific, biological fact. Where do we need to go? I was a few decades so, I was a child, then I grew up in an adolescent, then as a youth, this body. Then in the middle age, then I became sannyasi. Now I am sliding towards the so-called old age. After a few years, who is this I who is sliding into old age? This is the body. So body is ever changing. So body can't be that Atman. Body is coming, but is going, and body parts, body organ. Body means anything and everything that is part of the body. They are ever changing. So it can't be Atman. So we were investigating about the physical gross body. Now let's examine the subtle body, the mind, body and senses. The mind, intellect, the senses, they are equally subject to birth, death, decay, and they are ever changing. My mind, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes elated, excited, sometimes so depressed. My intellect equally, sometimes it's very sharp, ever ready with cogent arguments and incisive insights. Sometimes it's so dull. Similarly, the senses and their functioning with respect to their objects, they are ever changing. Sometimes the sound that comes is pleasant to the ears, sometimes unpleasant. And physically, of course, biologically, they are also changing, subject to decay. In the childhood, the eyes are so sharp, they can see anything, everything so sharply. With the growth of the body, now it begins to become dull, its capacity to see becomes dull, it begins to erode. Similarly, all the organs, more or less. So these can't be part of the Atman or the substance called Atman. So where is that Atman? In our personality, we have investigated this body, we have investigated the subtle body also, the body parts, organs, and these are subject to birth and death and change. And Advaita Vedanta says that Atman is eternal and immutable, never subject to birth and death. So where is that reality hidden within me? Now look within yourself. Who is saying this I? I am this, I am that, I am happy, I am depressed, I am this sannyasi, or I am this householder, I was a child, I am a middle-aged, or I am old. This I, the ultimate investigation has to go to this point, and there the mystery is revealed. As we are under the delusion of ignorance, we are deluded beings. At this moment, we identify this I, the sense of I or I am, with this body-mind complex. But once you investigate, removing or transcending your body consciousness and mental modifications, that is the mental identity, subtle identity, then you realize even this gross body or subtle body is not I. I am experiencing this body, mind, intellect. An experiencer can't be identical with the object of experience. The knower and known must be separate, different, can't be identical. This is the fundamental principle of Advaita Vedanta, which in day-to-day life each one of us does experience. The seer and seen can't be identical. They must, by definition, with logical rigor and scientific vigor, be separate. My eyes, which are seeing or perceiving the objects, are not identical with the objects they are perceiving. So, the body, the physical gross body of mind, the senses, the mind, the thoughts, the sense of jubilation, elation or dejection and depression in my mind, and my intellect, whether it's working very sharp or it's dull. I am experiencing, I do experience, I see, I know my body parts, my senses. I know even very clearly all the thoughts that come and go, the chain and the sequence of thoughts, good thoughts, bad thoughts, depressing thoughts, and thoughts that motivate me, inspire me. All these are coming and going, and I am the one experiencer, the knower, the seer of all those thoughts. So I can't be those thoughts or mind or intellect either. I am separate. I am the seer. If I am not separate, then who is seeing? The seer must be separate from the seen. The knower must be separate from the known. The experiencer must be separate and different from the experienced. The object of experience must be separate from the experiencer. Therefore, I realize, oh, I was deluded. I, which is ever present, ever shining, the self-luminous I am, is seer of all. I alone am seeing the entire universe, and as I see the entire universe of names and forms, I do see in the same way my own body and body parts. I know my senses. I know and experience my mind, the thoughts in my mind, the logical reasoning in my intellect, the cognition, the knowledge in my intellect, and through my intellect I do experience as an eternal subject. My mind is changing, my intellect is changing. There is swing in my modes of the mind. My body parts are changing, my senses are changing. But I am the one immutable, eternal experiencer, knower, perceiver of all these. So, as I am not this world, even so, I am not this body, gross body, nor the subtle body, nor the senses. I am separate from them. And have I experienced any change in the I? I am the self-luminous, self-existing. Have I ever lost my I amness? Never. Never, if you investigate honestly, logically, rigorously. I am is witness of death and birth and decay, the happiness and the sorrow and all the changes itself. I am is the immutable, unchangeable, eternal witness, universal subject of all knowledge, all experience, all knowing. But can anyone know me? Either any knower of I? There is none. None can know me. I alone, I am, which is ever shining, ever present reality, alone can and am able to know the entire world of names and forms. And in the same way, my own body, the so-called my own body, gross and subtle both, even the causal body that is the body in the state of deep sleep is called causal body, being surrounded by and shrouded by ignorance, insentience, avidya. That sound sleep where one is aware about nothing in the sense of the physical phenomenal world as we experience during the dream or the waking states, and the waking and dream states are products of that causal body, the body which causes insentience, ignorance of our true nature. But even during that sound sleep, I am witness, I am present there during that sound sleep also as witness to that sound sleep. So I am ever present. There was never ever in my life, as I know, I could say that I experienced loss or absence even for a fraction of a second, even for a nanosecond, the absence of my I amness. Therefore, it's logical. With scientific rigor, we come to the conclusion that this I amness, self-luminous, self-shining, self-existing, the knower of all, and not being ever an object of knowledge by anyone else. I am the universal, eternal, one knower of all. That is what my true nature, and that's why I am Atman. I am verily Atman, the knowing power within me, the perceiving power within me, the experiencer, the real experiencer within me, which is experiencing the entire universe, including the body, mind, intellect, my own personality, so-called associated individuality. I am the only knower, I am the only seer, I am the only perceiver, and I perceive everything, everyone, ever. My perceiving power, my knowing power, my experiencing faculty was never absent, is never absent, and therefore is not likely to be ever absent. Barring that I amness or my eternal perceiver, everything is subject to change. In my own experience, everything is changing every moment, but not I. I am the same, and I am self-dependent, absolute, independent, unconditioned reality of the nature of pure consciousness. I am is not an individual, an entity. I am is the infinite existence, pure consciousness. That is Atman. Pure consciousness is the nature of the Atman. Absolute awareness is the nature of Atman. And that pure awareness I am. That contentless consciousness is my true nature, that I am. Therefore, this Atman is an ever-present reality. It's ever attained, and it's most intimate and immediate reality of ours. There is nothing as intimate and as immediate as my own Atman, and there is nothing except the Atman which one could say is ever attained, ever available. Only the Atman and Atman, the self alone, is ever attained, ever present reality, ever accessible, being my own self, being my innermost reality. And whenever I perceive something, whenever I perceive or know this entire world, in every single perception, the perceiver within me is the Atman. Whenever I know something, the knower of that knowledge and the object of knowledge is none other than me. I am of the nature of pure consciousness. Right now, right here, have you ever experienced the absence of this pure consciousness, the perceiving power, experiencing power of yours, the knowing power of yours? Never. That is why Adi Shankaracharya says, Atman is ever present, ever attained, but only because of the ignorance of its nature and only because of ignorance about our true nature, we think that Atman is something remote, abstract reality. No. Atman is ever present, ever attained, is present right now, right here, everywhere, in everything, at the substratum of every cognition, ground of every knowledge, at the basis of every experience. To conclude, I would say that whenever you perceive anything, the perceiver that is present in that perceiving act is Atman. Whenever you know something, you cognize an object or something, the cognizer, the knower in that knowing is Atman alone. Tell me, can there be anything simpler and easier and direct? Every moment you can experience, you can know and realize the presence of the Atman, of the nature of pure consciousness, for it's present every moment in every experience, every knowledge, every perception. And the entire world of names and forms is nothing but shadow of my own Atman, as the Vedas declare, Atmai Vedam Sarvam. Know everything The entire world of names and forms is nothing but Atman. One Atman being of the nature of pure consciousness, infinite existence, absolute knowledge, the entire world of names and forms appears in this one non-dual Atman. Atman is indivisible, non-dual reality, and the entire world of duality, triad and trinity is mere superimposition because of ignorance. I, the one indivisible, non-dual Atman of the nature of pure consciousness, alone am the substratum of this entire universe of names and forms. Therefore, I alone am the substratum, the reality, the essence of the entire universe. Therefore, my presence is proven everywhere, in everything, as everything. There is nothing outside me. There is none separate from me. There is nothing in the universe, gross or subtle, separate or different from me. I am all of all. I am all in all. I am all by all myself, because I am Atman, the ever-present, all-pervading, all-knowing, almighty reality called Atman is none other than me, and it is ever shining as I. Therefore, it's proven that Atman is ever attained, ever realized, ever known. Only because of our ignorance we don't know. Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham.